everything. Like the whole thing was just so rich with specific detail, and to Durf's credit as a graphic novelist and author, but originally a trained journalist, he wasn't going to put anything in his book that he couldn't verify through personal experience, his friends, or the FBI's public records. And all of that collective research is what contributed to the book. And that was the great, you know, sort of guide for me, and then I had to dramatize it. There's so many peculiar things. I think the prom is pretty incredible that he's trying to latch on to his humanity and still wants to try to make it to a prom to show that he can like attend, but he did exactly that. He like left in the middle because he couldn't hold on. Walter Mondale, of course, he calls up, you know, the vice president's office and talks his way into that office. That's actually that's probably the most incredible thing. Yeah. That was actually the hardest thing to prove to everyone that was staying in the script, because it's so unbelievable in relationship to everything else, but it happened.
One of the things too that actually happened after our story that I found absolutely fascinating was Jeffrey Dahmer actually succeeded in convincing these cops. So basically he had a victim, and the victim had escaped his apartment, and Jeffrey Dahmer had convinced these cops that this victim was saying, like, look, this guy's trying to kill me. Jeffrey Dahmer convinced the cops that it was like his cousin or something, and he was just intoxicated. Or
his lover.
Or it was his lover. And the cops escorted this young man back to Jeffrey Dahmer's house, where he later killed the guy. Yeah, he's super drugged up, but just to give you like, yeah, just to give you a sense of his persuasiveness. But yeah, that was after our story. I just thought that was really crazy.
I think one of the craziest things is that the one day that he waits for the doctor is the one day that the doctor doesn't run by, which he verified himself, right? I think he said so. He was waiting there to presumably murder him, yes. And he didn't run by that day.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of it was Mark and I were really trying not to play the end of it. So, like, when we started the film, one of the things that we really held dear to us was, let's just go into our backyard and make a film about kids that are, you know, living their everyday lives, not playing that he's going to become a serial killer. But then at the same time, obviously, there are demons in his head, and he's got all these things that are haunting him, sort of. So yeah, I just tried to get into his head as much as I could, and that's that's pretty much what you saw.
I just say one thing about that. Ross is so light and personable, and definitely during filming, like, he was wonderful and lovely, but some of that lightness wasn't quite there, which I feel like I remember recalling when we wrapped. This like new Ross came out that I hadn't really seen in a long time, so it affected him. I think it had to.
Yeah, definitely a little bit, for sure.
Absolutely.
The house that the Dahmers live in on the film is actually Jeffrey Dahmer's actual childhood home. So we filmed in Akron, Ohio, in the suburbs, in a town called Bath, and that's the house he grew up in. That's his bedroom, where those two beds were. So to just, in the pursuit of authenticity, I was determined that we should film at that house if I could get access. And him and his brother shared a bedroom, and during his teenage years, they were sleeping in two twin beds that were 3 feet away from each other, which is hard to believe.
Didn't you set up the shack exactly where it once was as well?
Yes, so the author and I had toured the property while I was doing a rewrite, and we'd wander around, and there was a tenant there living at the time. He said, oh, there's the foundation of some old hut up in the woods, and Durf had originally thought that the hut was somewhere else on the property, and there was the foundation with branches piled on top of it over, 3 decades of fallen branches had sort of was stored there. And so to Jen Clyde and her team, they came in, and we wanted to put the hut right in the actual spot, so we cleared that area and built a new one right there.
Yeah, crazy. You mean the end of the movie?
Yeah.
That's drama.
Yeah,
that's a movie. Durf did say he never felt unsafe, and I don't think that Jeff in any way, the real Jeff, never had put his friends in any kind of danger. He thought that his life in high school was the best years of his life. And they obviously got way worse the moment graduation hit. So, but a movie needs certain, culminations that is also maybe playing with emotional realities more so than did the two of them walk in the dark that night. Can I just add the car? So they're actually, just to factually, because you can all go by the book, and you'll learn that actually one of the other friends happened to pick up Jeff on the side of the road and drive him back and sit in the car and hang out for a while. The truth is that actually happened after Jeff had already murdered the first hitchhiker, and only in doing back research had they realized that that situation with hitchhiker had already happened and that the body had already was somewhere on the property while him and his old high school buddy had sat in the car and talked. But for the sake of a movie, this is the way it needed to be, adapted.
For some reason I can't see you. Oh, hi.
It was, believe it or not, that was some of the worst smelling things that I've ever experienced. Yeah, we nicknamed the cat George. And he was actually, we bought him off of a tax service. So he was a real cat.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
Can we say that?
Yes.
I don't know. Should I not say that?
Taxidermist. It was
Yeah, it was
a dead cat.
Yeah, it was a
right?
taxidermist cat.
No animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
We bought it from a professional.
But I was harmed. Emotionally, I was harmed. No. But yeah, it was interesting working with Georgie.
Well, you're assuming they want it buried. It's now the 70s, the news broke in the early 90s. There were more people reaching out to us going, I knew him, or my older brother was friends with him. There were parents whose children were extras, and those parents remember being in high school with him. So we may from a distance have that impression, but I think there was a lot of love and enthusiasm coming from the town that this book that had already been known had spoken about this part of this unique story from Durf's perspective, and that we were turning to film. So we had a lot of support from the community. I met a lot of people there. Like when I had breaks, I ended up speaking to a girl that was on the tennis team. Hey, Alex Rollo!
Another movie, hence his tardiness.
That he could no longer draw as a high school kid. His skills were way beyond that. So he's like, you might as well just hire some high school kid to do it. And we had a wonderful, talented, it's in the credits, but I don't remember the name of the actress, the artist at the moment. But yeah, it was a wonderful, talented 18-year-old who then copied Durf's photographs of his actual bedroom and drew those drawings to scale in the bedroom that you did see at the end of the movie that Durf was packing his bag in.
And when Durf himself saw that,
He could not believe that it felt like he was actually in his childhood home, in his childhood bedroom.
Thank you. I actually was just watching a lot of videos on Jeffrey Dahmer, and that was actually how he moved, or how I saw in the videos. Very sulking over and kind of shuffle his feet a little bit. And that was something I really wanted to accurately depict in the film. But yeah, thanks for noticing.
I'm not sure.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Me and Tommy and Harry, who's not here, became like really, really close off camera, and sort of had this whole thing where we would start just immediately like goofing around before we were filming, and then bleed it into, we carried a lot of like bits we came up with and stuff, and we would kept it, and we called each other the character names, kind of kept it completely. And then me and Ross didn't talk for like a month, and then and we wouldn't talk, and so we kept it really weird. And like we were sitting in the, like when we did that scene in the car, we like were not talking to each other at all, and it sort of made it really tense. And like Ross is a big dude, and seeing him there, sort of crouching over in the car, was pretty fucking terrifying. So it was easy. It was easy with his glasses on. It was easy to just disappear into it. But it's all really thanks to how amazingly, you know, he's stating character. He's amazing. This guy's amazing, and this guy also. But this is a really hard job. This is hard. Me and Tommy were just goofing around the whole movie. Like, we're just laughing 90% of the movie, but Ross is doing some actual acting.
I wanted to touch on what you said. Yeah, a lot of it, in order to really like solidify, to make the friendship in the movie feel real, kind of just became really close friends and joked around a lot. And there are a lot of bits that you hear in the movie that are they're just really us talking like aggressively. So there's
the weirdest is when you see like personal stories, like when you tell your personal stories in the improv scene, like that scene where Dahmer comes up with the idea to take pictures, like that scene was just completely improvised.
That's a true story.
Marc had faith in us, and that's just a true story. And I was like, this is weird. Where do you get people in trouble with this?
Because Marc was like, you know, we want to do like this scene, and we want to show you guys bonding, and we were thinking about having you come in and tell like a story about a time you were rejected, but we're only going to do it if it's a real story. So the James Joyce thing is really happened to me last year. I went up to a girl and I was like, I don't even know how we got on the subject, but I eventually was like, yo, Joyce, yeah, he's okay. And she was like, what have you read? I was like, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. She was like asking me questions about it, and eventually I was like, I didn't read that. Just trying to look smart.
But another thing I want to say really quickly is, it's obviously the costumes and everything like that help, but kind of like Alex was mentioning, it's so nice to work with talented actors, because you don't really need to like try that hard to really like get into it. Really, you just find yourself in the scene, and then everything that happens from that point on is in that moment, or so I find.
Because I think it's more powerful to have it occur in your head, and so, and it also makes it a little bit more digestible. And I didn't want to exploit these characters and just tell an honest story. So all of those things come up with a philosophy on how to approach the film. To keep the tone also all in the same world too. So there's a lot of reasons.
And also, I mean, this is the story before that story. So while he was sort of killing and mutilating animals, and there's some of that obviously hinted at, this is before the murders and before the real gruesomeness, and this is the story that we're telling. So for that reason, it sort of supports all of what Marc said as well. There's
a dramatic push and pull, like will he and when he and where is he gonna break, and so you do see the dog he might in the woods, but then he changes his mind. But then you do see another dog who has been, but you can put the two together and imagine what he must have done.